I want to ask you sort of what your personal connection, I mean, this is such an arcane, demanding, gnarly, intellectual problem that you're addressing. But knowing you for as long as I have and knowing your work, it's important to be emotionally connected to it. And so I want to ask you primarily about your emotional connection to the story and what clicked for you.
Well, to be honest, this was a story that was suggested to me by Mark Schmugger, who was the producer on We Steal Secrets. And it was a story I knew a little bit about, but not nearly that much. Sometimes you do films because you feel like you know a lot about the subject. Sometimes you do them because you don't know enough. Something big had happened, but I didn't really know what. So it really started more with curiosity. I think the emotional connection came midway through as I was trying to tell the story. And, well, I say in the film, I got pissed off. Well, I did get pissed off. I mean, you had an event that had clearly happened, and yet everybody in government was refusing to acknowledge that it had happened. And then I realized I was going down the secret rabbit hole. I mean, it reminded me of when I did Taxi to the Dark Side. I remember going down to Guantanamo in 2006, and our minder, who was from Lockheed, I believe, wasn't a member of the military, but while we were shooting some establishing shots, we were shooting this one mountain, and she said, "I'm sorry, you can't shoot that mountain." I said, "Well, why not?" She said, "Well, the mountain is classified." So it reminded me of that very much.
Right. David, you wrote a book based on your reporting, your extraordinary reporting on these stories. What leaps out at me watching this movie is how absent Congress is. I mean, save for that one hearing where we see Joe Lieberman. Can you tell us just a little bit about where this all stands in terms of the accountability with our branches of government?
Well, it's a fascinating question, and because as Alex has laid out, not only is all of this classified, but very little of it is told to Congress, except to the very few members who get briefed on the deepest operations that go on. And in fact, when my book came out 4 years ago, Confront and Conceal, and the Times ran the excerpts from it, which you saw in the movie, we discovered that members of the Senate Intelligence Committee, with the exception of the chairman and the ranking member, had not been briefed and read about the operation and its details for the first time when they picked up the New York Times that morning. So that tells you that not only have we not managed to have a broad national debate on this subject, we also haven't managed to even have a fully informed congressional debate, because you get to a point where the operations themselves become so secret that nobody can back off and describe the principles. Now that's changed, I have to say, in the 4 years since I worked on the books and the articles. And also I think the remarkable job that Alex has done, and the remarkable job that the Symantec team here did in pulling out the data that even made my reporting possible, I think is forcing open the debate despite the government's best efforts.
Now, to the heroes of the piece, Eric and Liam. I'm going to start with something really basic, which is when you got that first blip from Belarus that something's going on here, and it seems like this is something that the guys in the private security tracking world like you come together and work on this in a collective way, and it's kind of partly like almost a game, not a game, but just sort of a friendly competition. But are you, forgive me if this is crass, but is this your job? I mean, is somebody paying you to this, or are you doing this kind of in your spare time? I'm still not clear on exactly what you do and how you do it. Please help.
Okay, so, well, we do get paid to do this, yeah, that's what we do for our living. But actually, I was the person who received it on a Friday morning. I received the call, and we got this information that there was an exploit in there, a zero-day exploit in there. And I started looking at the code and immediately understood that there was really crazy things going on here. So according as I was analyzing the code, I understood that everything looked strange, everything looked different. We looked at malware, we looked at malicious code all the time, and this just looked totally different. And so I did actually stay in until like 2 a.m. Friday night, came in all day Saturday, which I'm not paid for, and all day Sunday, which I'm not paid for. And just because on Monday morning I wanted to be able to have all the information and say like, yeah, hey guys, I found all this cool stuff inside this threat. So yeah, I guess it's a little bit of both. I get paid for it, and then also it's just it's passionate, it's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. So,
But who's your client in this? I mean, are you?
it's our customers. So Symantec has 120 million customers who pay us to protect their computers.
I see, so private computer users.
Yes.
Yeah, not just private. I mean, it's enterprises, governments,
Right.
All kinds of people. And
We subscribe to your service.
that's right. Our service buys our products, but I think we do work, frankly, in a unique industry. I mean, I think most of the people that I work with, that we work with, your average job, you have a competitor, and you're trying to make money, and you're trying to kill your competitor. And the reality is, while we do have competitors, most of us are driven to defeat a different adversary than our competitor, which are these attackers who are breaking into computers. To be frank, we rarely think about how we're going to beat our competitor. We're coming to work every day thinking about how we're going to beat attackers, how we're going to prevent them from infecting.
If you want to compare this to a moment, I think the moment is, think about when Orville and Wilbur Wright showed the airplane for the first time to a bunch of generals up in College Park in 1908. And they looked and they said, gee, this is a really good surveillance device, but we can't really imagine using it for a military purpose. Well, World War I was 10 years later, and World War II was only less than 30 years behind that, and it changed the way nations compete. That's what's happening now.
But I think it's terribly important at the end of the day to disclose what's going on. And I'm involved in a dramatic project now that's based on true events. And one of the things we're going to do very assiduously is footnote it. You can go to the website and find out exactly why we made the decisions that we made. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, there's a journalistic obligation I think you have, but also a dramatic obligation. I try to honor both.
And last question, can you tell us a little bit more about that? You're doing your first feature fiction film.
I'm doing a couple of fiction projects. One is based on the Lawrence Wright, is a fiction series based on the Lawrence Wright book, The Looming Tower. And one is a feature film based on Benny Metzger's book, The Burglary, about a group of citizens who break into an FBI office in 1971 and steal all the files therein and discover there was an operation called COINTELPRO.
Great, well, we look forward to that. Thank you.